Last time I won this park run. This time I only finished a fourth. But I actually think this was the better run. Let me show you why. Today's park run progress report, we're looking at the second time I ran the Mamquam Spawning Trail park run in Squamish in British Columbia, Canada. This was the 51st park run there on the 27th of June this year. I finished in a time of 22:58 PB for that course, and Robin, who pushed me 2 weeks previously, once again she pushed me through the run again as well. Now on Strava, you can see a couple of PBs for different sections of the course there. It's a 2 lap course, if that's going to display. Let's just zoom in. Let's take forever to zoom in. My apologies. I don't know why I'm out in the middle of the golf course for that photo, but that's where it's given it. So it's 2 laps, including the dog leg. And then once you finish, turn and go to the finish line. Let's have a look at the data. And this is a real fascinating companion to part one because although the finishing time is over a minute quicker, I actually think the coaching story is quite different. The first run was about progressive pacing. This one was about discipline and precision. This wasn't a faster version of part one. It was a completely different pacing challenge and one that I executed, if I don't say so myself, exceptionally well. Instead of gradually increasing the effort throughout the run, my goal this time was to become a metronome, maintain a 430 per kilometre regardless of how I felt. It sounds easy, but it isn't. Pacing was remarkably accurate. My target was 430 per kilometre. My splits were 430, 427, 429, 430, 429. Every kilometre intentionally, this is incredibly satisfying to look at. Over 5 kilometres, I deviated by only 3 seconds from my intended pace. Most runners couldn't do that on a treadmill. Doing it on a trail park run is genuinely impressive. Compare this to part one. Part one looked like 5:14 for the first kilometre, 4:50 for the second, 4:41, 4:38, 4:29. Every kilometre intentionally got quicker, and obviously part two looks like 4:30, 4:27, 4:29, 4:30, and 4:29. Instead of building pace, I simply locked onto one pace and refused to let it drift. They're two completely different skill sets. Now, my heart rate tells a slightly different story. If we look at the heart rate, 149 or 149 beats per minute for the first kilometre, 163 beats per minute for the second, 168, 173, 171, and then 173 for the last little bit through to the finish line. The first thing I notice is that the higher opening heart rate compared to part one. That's expected. I started immediately at race pace. There wasn't the deliberately conservative opening kilometre that allowed my heart rate to build gradually. Even so, heart rate remained remarkably stable over the final 3 kilometres. That tells me I found exactly the right intensity. I was working hard, but not overreaching. Now, power, this might be my favourite metric of the whole run. 404 watts for the first kilometre, 398 watts for the second, 402, 398, 396, and then 412 to finish with. This is brilliant. The variation is tiny, around only 8 watts across the first 5 kilometres. That's almost perfectly controlled. Most runners fluctuate far more than that without even realizing it. Now, my cadence, once again, changed 87 strides per minute, 87, 87, 86, 86, and then 86 again through to the finish. Again, wonderfully boring. Nothing dramatic, nothing forced. I simply maintained the same mechanics throughout. What I find most interesting, the first run demonstrated, can I execute a negative split? The second asks, can I execute absolute pace discipline? They're almost opposite coaching exercises. One requires increasing effort, the other requires resisting the temptation to surge. Now, my fourth place is almost irrelevant. Ironically, I think the result says much less about my performance than part one. The field was stronger. I ran over a minute quicker. The winner was nearly 6 minutes quicker than when I won it. That's exactly why placing can be such a poor measure of progress. My own execution improved enormously. What does this say about future potential? This is where I think the exciting part begins. I think I'm capable of running significantly faster than a 22:58 because neither of these runs were raced flat out. Both were controlled experiments. Part one tested progressive pacing. Part two tested pacing discipline. Neither tested how fast can I run today. Instead, they asked, can I execute this specific strategy? That's a very different mindset. Which run was better? Now, they're almost impossible to compare because they had vastly different objectives. If we're judging execution, part one wins for pacing strategy. Everything flowed beautifully from beginning to end. If we're judging precision, part two wins comfortably. Holding almost identical kilometre splits on a trail course is exceptional. Now, the coaching lesson, I think this becomes the key message in this second video. Running fast isn't always the goal. Sometimes the biggest improvement comes from learning to control your pace so precisely that you can execute exactly the race you've planned. That's a lesson that applies to every park runner, whether you're trying to break 35 minutes or 20 minutes. I'd summarize this run as a masterclass in pace discipline. 5 kilometers at virtually identical pace, supported by remarkably consistent power, cadence, and heart rate, demonstrating that successful racing isn't always about running harder. It's about executing the plan with precision. I also like how the two videos complement one another. Part one, how to run a negative split. Part two, how to hold an even pace. Together they show that there's no single perfect pacing strategy. Different goals require different execution, but in both cases, success came from committing to the plan rather than reacting to the runners around you. As this comparison between parts one and part two shows, improving at parkrun isn't always about running harder. It's about running smarter. Whether your goal is sub 35, sub 30, sub 25, or even sub 20, understanding your pacing, heart rate, cadence, and power can unlock improvements you might never spot on your own. If you'd like me to analyze your own parkrun or 5K just like this, you can apply for a personalized parkrun progress report using the link in the description below. I'd love to help you uncover where your next personal best is hiding. Ka kite anō, and I'll see you in the next parkrun progress report.